Take an extremely cautious approach to this. I think the campaign wants to eventually get to the bank capital and use this as a positive, but I think they're going very slow, just putting their toes in the water right now, seeing how this is accepted by the voters, because so far, Bain has been something they've been avoiding. So why not, instead of just jumping right into it, let's kind of throw this out there in the Wall Street Journal. It's a real soft piece. And if this is accepted well, then let's move on from there. Let's tell some real stories and get the numbers, and then do the correlation between what he did at Bain Capital and what he can do as President of the United States.
But so let me criticize myself, because I think it's actually, I'll be criticizing Mitt Romney in tandem. I feel somewhat akin to him in this. My criticism was different than year two. It wasn't that he left out the human factor. It's that he didn't connect the dots well enough from here's the quality that I'm talking about, competition, incentive, innovation. Here's how I used it at this company, and here's how that correlates to the national picture. That's what I was talking about. I don't think he made that argument well. But listen, I think I might think like Mitt Romney. The inherent righteousness of my argument is obvious to me, that I'm correct. And if I just hammer this over and over, people will get it. But that's false. I think your two criticism is better. It needs to become emotional. It needs to become human.
He can do what you said,
right,
but just connect the dots through a human story.
But you know, back in 2008, I remember having a conversation with a Romney campaign staffer and saying, why don't you guys do like what Ross Perot did back in 1992? Mitt Romney's not an emotional guy. He's not a natural storyteller. And to contradict you, you're a very natural storyteller. You're very good at connecting emotionally. Yeah, maybe it's the Texas in you. You have that in common with Dan Rather. But telling one of the Romney campaign people, why don't you do like a half-hour infomercial? Mitt Romney certainly has the money. Put it up there and have him have charts and
it didn't work for Ross Perot.
It did work for Ross Perot. He got 17% of the vote.
No, 17% is not what you're going for.
That won't work with
Well, he was
Romney.
an independent candidate. It was a huge, huge showing for him.
I don't think people will be able to stand watching him for 30 minutes, go through charts and this and that, because he comes across a little bit too much like a lecturer. You know what I mean? Like it's not. There's nothing compelling about.
Yeah.
Can you
I don't know if
outsource
that's
emotion? Can you say I'm going to pull one employee from Staples, one employee from Steel Dynamics, and one employee from AccuRims or AccuRide or whatever it was called, and say, you know what? These are going to be my Joe the Plumbers. These are going to be my guys that come up and tell the story of this company.
What he should do, and I think that's what
because he can't do it himself. Let me say, emotion does not come to him.
This is the blueprint. This is the overall argument. This is the umbrella argument for I think what is coming, based on all the sort of trajectories we're seeing right now with this campaign, which is at some point they're going to start to tell those more human stories, because they're being hit on the other side with the sort of inhuman stories and how evil and bad Mitt Romney is. You start telling stories about actually creating jobs. Creating jobs. He did that in the private sector. Now he wants to do that in government. That's not a tough transition, but I agree with you. It could have been a transition that was more defined in the article.
So this is so easy. We've been talking about this for months now. Why aren't they doing it? It almost scares me there's something they don't want to get out. I mean, why are they not hammering this? Because it seems like the economy is the #1 factor for this election.
The Bain.
And why not use Bain as your #1 campaign to get out there and push that? I don't understand why.
I know the answer to that. It's because Romney as a person is risk adverse, and it would take risk and it would take an aggressive offense.
But why is it risky, Tara? Why is it risky to show that I ran a business and the government's a business?
Rich guy. Then he's the 1%. Then he's the one who grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth, and it plays to that image. However,
I don't think Americans. He is. That's what he is.
Why do we shouldn't be apologizing for success in America?
Yeah,
he didn't get it the way the Kennedys got it. You know, you want to go down. He didn't get it the way John Kerry got it. He didn't marry into it. He earned it. And so why is he apologetic for that? And that's been the biggest frustration for us as conservatives who want to applaud success. And everyone in the United States should have the opportunity to be just as successful.
Mitt Romney is
not doing that.
He's not the Clintons. You know, he's not going into public service so he can make tens of millions of dollars on the speaking tour as soon as he finishes. He actually thinks that he can do something good here, and I think he should highlight that too. Yeah, I don't need this. If I were him, I would say that. I want this because I think I can help, and I have the skill set. And by the way, in this Wall Street Journal article, this is the skill set that I'm bringing to the table.
But don't you think there's also just Mitt Romney, the man that we've seen, doesn't like to talk about money? He doesn't like, this is a person who was a Mormon who went on missions, and he talks about devoting himself to public service, how his father said that public service and to define yourself through what you accomplished was what was important, not to be a rich kid who could.
But he loves money. Anybody who did that job loves money.
But
you don't become a venture capitalist because you don't love money.
He doesn't like to talk about his personal wealth. I think that's
I agree, but he loves. I mean, people
and you know what?
That job.
He should say that in his speech. I don't need to talk about or want to talk about my personal wealth. It's about X, Y, and Z for me, and change the subject over to Susie Johnson next door who wants to start a small business and can't. They should own the, everyone in this room where he's talking to either works for a small business, wants to own one, or works for one.
So if he does that, I think everything else aside, Tara, if he manages to do what you just said, I feel like he can win. If he doesn't do that, I don't think
there's still time. There's still several months ahead. I'll tell you what, the best line I heard came from Mitt Romney today, and that's everyone who has ever hired me has been happy with my performance.